Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about what former TV sports director Andy Sidaris got up to after his delightfully trashing 1987 offering Hard Ticket to Hawaii. The answer, it turned out to be, was churning out another of his lethal ladies skin flick action movies pretty much every year for the next decade. I'm only going to look at the first five of those films here because even I have a threshold for this sort of stuff. And Sidaris first returned with 1988's Picasso Trigger. Unlike his previous offerings, which featured gonzo plot elements like a toxic irradiated snake, this movie actually has a core concept that isn't fundamentally goofy. A mob boss fakes his own death as part of a scheme to have his enemies on both sides of the law wipe each other out. Imagine that plot hook in the hands of a Brian De Palma, for instance. You could actually do a pretty solid, gritty thriller. You don't get that here. Instead, since this is an Andy Sidaris movie, it ends up with the same silly antics of all of his stuff does, basically. Next came Savage Beach, which returns to form with a pair of curvaceous agents crash landing on a supposedly deserted island, where they promptly stumble across not just criminals and communist insurgents, but a Japanese soldier who's been marooned there since World War II and who seems desperately keen to show them his katana. Not a euphemism, I hasten to add. Third off the grid, we have Guns, which is quite the low effort title. This film has a supposedly dead criminal return with plans to re establish a gun smuggling racket to his unidentified South American homeland. Fourth, Do or Die, in which a mob boss named Kane grows tired of two lethal ladies who keep interfering with his operations. He hires six pairs of assassins to kill them and end their meddling. Spoiler, he does not succeed, mostly because it seems he's really, really bad at hiring assassins. Finally, at least for today, is Hard Hunted. In this film, Kane returns for certain definitions of returns, more on that later. He's after the trigger device for a nuclear weapon, which is hidden in a Buddha statue. It's up to the lethal ladies to keep this deadly device out of Kane's hands while finding as many opportunities as possible to remove their tops. So I figure I should start by giving credit where credit is due, not least because most of this video will be mocking Sidaris and the recurring tropes that turn up in his clumsily written, badly acted boob fests. Tropes other than merely clumsy writing and bosoms, that is. So yeah, credit where it is due. As I noted at the start of this video, Andy Sidaris wrote and directed these five films at a regular pacing of one every year. There's also the question of financing these films. Either these movies are actually making enough money to support the next production, or Sidaris, or perhaps his wife Arlene, who has a producer credit, was a wizard at soliciting funding. Either way, there aren't many people who can churn out live action films on such a reliable schedule. Now, of course, it's possible that one reason few people could sustain that schedule is because they might make a bit more effort to be rigorous about minor details like plots that make sense, or dialogue that sounds natural, or casting people who can act. Sidaris seems to have cared little about such factors, particularly when it came to women who were willing to bare some skin. But it's not Sidaris' well established penchant for casting Playboy and penthouse models that I want to talk about today. Instead, I want to look at another casting foible of his, which is casting the same actor in many different roles. The poster boy for this aspect of Sidaris' work is doubtless Rodrigo Obregon, who first appeared in Hard Ticket to Hawaii, where his character died, and then appears in no less than nine other Sidaris films, including four of the ones that I'm discussing today. None of these appearances are as the same characters in any of the previous movies, and in almost all of them, he's a villain who gets killed off by the time the credits roll. Now, Obregon is certainly not the only performer to make appearances in multiple roles in multiple films, though. Eric Estrada, best known as Ponch from the successful 1970s TV show Chips, pops up as a villain in Guns, for instance, before returning in Do or Die as a completely different character, this time a heroic government agent. There are several other examples of Actor X plays different characters in different films of the series that I could go through, but instead I want my turn attention to the time Sidaris reversed his usual play. Instead of having the same actor play two different roles, he had two different actors play the same role in different films. Now, sure, this has been done by other productions, such as when they recast Rhodey in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't think anyone has been quite so blithe as to recast a role played by Pat Morita to be played by Jeffrey Moore, the son of James Bond actor Roger Moore. Yep, when Mob Boss Kane first appears, he is played by the former Mr. Yagi, and when he returns, he's not just 11 inches taller, he's a whole new ethnicity. The second Sidaris movie trope we come to see come into full fruition in these films is his love of models. I don't mean the nude kind this time, I mean the vehicular type. Remote controlled model cars, boats, and helicopters. For some reason, particularly helicopters, play an ever increasing role in these movies as the years roll on. Possibly Sidaris just really loved model helicopters. Possibly it was much cheaper and easier to shoot action scenes with models than with real vehicles, particularly if you weren't even trying to pretend that they were real vehicles. If the shift to model vehicles was a factor of budget and skill, then it may have been a good idea, at least if the inept aging makeup job in Savage Beach is anything to go by, that is. You see, they cast a young actor to play the stranded Japanese soldier in both the flashbacks and the modern day, and in the latter scenes, he sports the least convincing elderly person makeup effects I've ever seen perpetrated on film. Whatever the reason for using so many model vehicles, this quintet of films will see a host of remote controlled shenanigans with pride of place for what did I just watch? Probably going to the scene where a model helicopter launches real rockets to take out the world's dumbest ninjas. It's something, it really is. Now, while all of Sidaris' films suffer from clumsy writing, I don't want to just broadly state that as a trope. Instead, I want to focus on a particular recurring kind of clumsy writing that undercuts most of these movies, which is incompetent villains. Sidaris' villains are chumps. They fall for obvious ploys, they make bafflingly counterproductive decisions, and they basically set themselves up for failure again and again. Now, occasionally it is clear that Sidaris is deliberately portraying minor villains as buffoons for alleged comedy effect, such as the duo of would-be hitmen codenamed Wiley and Coyote. Yes, they suffer a suitably Looney Tunes fate, but other times it's the major villain who's making bad choices. An obvious example here is Kane in Do or Die. Having hired 12 assassins to go after two government agents, he not only warns the agents in order to be sporting, he also sends the agents in pairs, which not only sacrifices their 6-to-1 numerical advantage, but give the agents time to call in reinforcements of their own. The end result, each pair of assassins find themselves going up against no less than 8 agents, giving the good guys a 4-to-1 advantage in every battle. Gosh, I wonder if they'll win. Or there's the baffling plot point that begins Hard Hunted. Kane actually begins the film with a nuclear trigger in his possession, but the device is stolen by an undercover government agent. Fortunately for Kane, the contact who helps the agent sneak out with the device is secretly in Kane's employ, so he can tell Kane where she went and the movie can happen. But of course, this begs the question, why did Kane's employee help the agent steal from Kane in the first place? Even Sidaris seems to realize that that was a bit odd because he does try to explain it. The explanation is thoroughly unconvincing, though, and also, of course, unnecessary. Just eliminate the whole he's Kane's employee idea and have Kane blackmail or bribe the information out of someone, and the problem goes away. Look, what I'm saying is don't play out when the villain does something dumb, take a drinking game while watching Andy Sidaris movies, because you'll die from toxic shock syndrome, frankly. Next time, while all Andy Sidaris movies are rubbish, the best of them, and I'm thinking here specifically of Hard Ticket to Hawaii, are fun rubbish. Also fun rubbish is the 1942 B movie mystery The Corpse Vanishes. But that is for next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've seen any of these films, let me know what you thought of them.